Well, you know how it is. You're away from home. You're out of your normal environment, and you are, out of your habits. And that's me right now. I am not home. Still at my mother-in-law's house. And so you flip on the TV, you're watching First Take. Maybe, I don't know, that's something that you normally do. It's not normally the first thing I do on a weekday, but it's what I did today. And I wasn't surprised to see Stephen A., Shannon Sharpe, and former Colts coach Jeff Saturday breaking down Eagles, Niners, the NFC. And Shannon Sharpe said something that I thought was interesting. And then Stephen A. followed it up with something that was good. This show, by the way, I could watch these guys on mute. And that's not a backhanded compliment. I just mean it's entertaining even without the sound. But with the sound, they said something I thought was worth reacting to. Here it is.
Coming back that can help them get out of that funk. And if the Cowboys play their absolute best, if the Eagles play their absolute best.
Problem. All right. Is that better? Is that better? Is that better? I don't know if this video is going to do numbers on the replay. Is that better? Hold on. Bad mix. I know. Is that better? Is that better? Is that better? This is not how you're supposed to get into a video. No sound. How about that? Is that better? This is not how you're supposed to get into a video. All right. I think I had some interference. I got like a weird, my mic stand, here's an iPad right now. That's probably bad for electrical magnetic interference. So if you've made it this far in the video on the replay, shout out to you. Oops. All right, here we go. I was just saying, out of my normal routine at my mother-in-law's house, Tuesday morning, I usually don't wake up at 6:15 and watch First Take, but it wasn't 6:15. I mean, I was up at 6:15. Anyway, here we go. This is what they said.
The Cowboys play their absolute best.
I'm going to start this over. Here we go.
Coming back that can help them get out of that funk. And if the Cowboys play their absolute best, if the Eagles play their absolute best, and the 49ers play their best, 49ers beat both of those teams by at least 10 points. That's how good the 49ers are. That's how balanced they are. Because they can run it better than both of those teams, and their playmakers are better than both of those teams.
And motivation matters. I mean, I think when we look at it, and I brought this up a few days ago, I keep bringing it up because I don't think it can be understated. They believe how many teams, nobody in NFL history lost 4 quarterbacks in the same season.
Oh, no, they
did. They went into the NFC Championship game, and they had to play the last 3 quarters without a quarterback.
That's right.
They believe they should have been in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They showed up in Philadelphia. They chirped. They talked smack, coming in, walked into the Lincoln Financial Field. Everybody dressed in black. We coming for a funeral.
Yep.
Showed up on the field, shoved Eagle players around before the game.
Yeah.
They did everything you could possibly do to just
fight with security guards,
just
all
to
of it.
bump somebody, and then went out on the field. And as you say, boat race.
Real quick, Shannon, can I just
All right. So James said the audio was too quiet. I mean, like I said, it's a road game, and I'm going to turn it down a little bit here, but we're not working with all the top equipment. So I think a couple things were interesting there. One, first with Shannon Sharpe, where he said the Niners best beat Dallas and Philly by 10. Agreed. The question is, does their best beat the AFC by 1? Does it beat the AFC by anything, right? And that's what I want to try. I mean, we won't know that answer today. I mean, we'll know that answer maybe a little bit when they play the Ravens. But I think a couple of things to address. Number one of their debates today was whether or not, Dallas has the momentum as it relates to their matchup with Philly and the NFC East. I mean, Dallas from, when you look at some of the ranks and the numbers, top 10 in offense and defense, that's not Philadelphia right now. Philadelphia's given up, they're near the bottom of the league. I think they're 31st in touchdowns allowed. They've given up a lot of touchdowns. But I think in the end, Dallas will prove to not be able to beat Philadelphia when it matters the most. I think that's if you've been watching or listening for a while, I just believe that's an inherent flaw with Mike McCarthy's team. But they might have a little bit of the momentum this week. I think Philly's going to be better this week. I think Philly, people looked at it as excuses, or why are you talking about the way they played in the 3 weeks leading up to the Niner game. Don't give them excuses, blah blah blah, whatever. All that stuff mattered. It mattered for the Niners and it mattered for Philly. And Dallas better hope it matters one more week. We know how teams play against their next opponent after they play the Niners. But I think it's going to take more than the Niners beating Philadelphia badly for me to believe that suddenly Dallas is going to be the NFC East champion. All right, but we know this. I think we know this. That wasn't Philly's best, but I think we can say that the Niners' best beats Philadelphia. I do believe that. The Niners' best definitely beats Dallas. Maybe because of their defense, they do present some challenges that Philadelphia doesn't, in theory, on paper. But your best, we're talking about their best. We know. We don't have to talk about that. Their best beats Dallas. Detroit, please. Does the Niners' best beat Jared Goff? Yes. Does the Niners' best beat Jared Goff's best? Yes. Detroit's defense is not anything special, and Jared Goff would need a special defense in order to have a shot to beat the Niners and or to win the NFC. They're not going to have either. If they get home field, that would be the only thing that makes you think twice about Detroit if they were to play that game at home. But I think one thing we'll see as the postseason arrives, that the postseason schedule is going to be more difficult for Detroit than their regular season schedule. And great story, really good team, solid team, but championship contender, no. Team who can beat the Niners at their best, not a chance in hell. The Niners B game beats Detroit, so no big concern there. Now you go on the road to Detroit and you throw 3 picks, and I'm not saying you can't lose games. I mean, games get lost all the time, but I'm not concerned about that. The biggest challenges are in the AFC, and I think even though this Ravens game is going to be a regular season game, and you're going to have to win that game to be the 1 seed. Let's talk about it from a Super Bowl perspective. When you think about any of these AFC teams, I think you have to think about them like, what would they look like if they're in the Super Bowl? What will they have done to get to the Super Bowl? And I think the Ravens, in a weird way, for being, the second best team in the league right now, maybe they would argue the best team in the league, are a little under the radar in a bizarre way. If they get to the Super Bowl, I think they'll do it with a defense that looks, obviously with Lamar, but they'll do it with a defense that looks pretty ferocious. Kansas City, the question with them is, can Mahomes overcome his lack of weapons, right? It's not a defense that holds him back at this point. But just imagine they're in the Super Bowl, right? Don't think about Kansas City. The Niners don't have to beat Kansas City right now. They don't have to beat this version of the Chiefs. They would have to beat the version of the Chiefs that has made it to the Super Bowl. And the way things are trending, it doesn't look like they'll get there. But if they do, that means they've probably won the AFC Championship game on the road. And then you are just one-on-one, face-to-face with Patrick Mahomes. And I don't care about beating Trevor Lawrence. I don't care about beating Dak Prescott, certainly. I don't care about beating Jalen Hurts. I don't care about beating, even if they do, Lamar Jackson. Beating Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl with 2 weeks for Andy Reid to prepare would be a totally different animal. So I know right now it's easy to say, Chiefs, they ain't got it. Well, just understand, if the Niners were to meet the Chiefs, it would not be this version of the Chiefs, because that version will have found a way to make it to the Super Bowl and will have 2 weeks to prepare. But I do think the Niners' best beats that team right now. No question about it. Does the Niners' best beat their best if somehow their best has gotten them to the Super Bowl? Player for player, yeah, hell yeah, it does. But Patrick Mahomes can make up for so many deficiencies that you would just have to hold your breath in that game. Miami, does the Niners' best beat Miami? Yeah, it beats the Dolphins. But again, if Miami got to the Super Bowl, how do they look and how have they gotten there? Well, that's a little more challenging. If they're the 2 seed and they've, say, won on the road in Baltimore, that'd be a really impressive team. If Miami finishes off this season as the 1 seed in the AFC and gets to the Super Bowl, I hate to say this, but it may not look like the most impressive run at the end, right? Get a bye, win a playoff game at home. Maybe you're looking at it like not the most. Beating the Ravens at home would be impressive. Beating Kansas City anywhere if you're Miami and you're Tua and you haven't done it yet. Your best moment in the last month was pretty good playing the guitar for the Mannings. But, I think there's a chance that Miami could kind of be around that position, and there would still be a lot of questions about them because they'd have to have beaten Kansas City, I think. The Ravens are – I'm looking forward to seeing the Ravens. They're formidable. And I think like Kansas City, you'd go, if you end up in a big game with them, all bets are off because they're quarterback. But keep in mind, you will have played that team already and maybe beaten them. I think the Niners will. So I think that, first of all, Shannon's right when it comes to the NFC. The question is not about the NFC at this point if you're trying to project. Now, Stephen A said basically the Niners are on a mission. And I think he's right. I don't think there's been a team in the league this year that looks more mission-oriented. And the thing about the Niners is the reason I think they look more that way than anybody else is because they've been on that mission so much longer than everybody else. Sometimes the mission wears you out. For them, the mission length has lined up with their players' prime. George Kittle's still excellent. Trent Williams still excellent. Debo excellent. IU gotten excellent. Brock Purdy become your quarterback and gotten excellent, and Christian McCaffrey become a member of your team. Fred Warner still excellent. Mooney Ward, your DBs are playing better than they were before the trade deadline. Outside of Mooney Ward, even Mooney's playing really well. So the Niners have been on this flight, this championship flight. Feels a lot longer, right? You go back than this Eagles team has. Now, the Cowboys have been on their own journey through the wilderness, but the Niners have been on this mission a lot longer. They've gone through what Philly just went through. That was back in 2019, where they thought they were going to be the Super Bowl champs and then lost and had to respond to that. That's what Philadelphia is going through right now. Niners have already done that. Niners have bounced back from that. Kansas City is in they've won. They're in another phase of their chase, right? Nobody really, if you go through the league, is in kind of this same window that the Niners are in. They've been to the Super Bowl. They thought they had it. They've recovered from those wounds. We'll see how this year plays out for Philly. Maybe this will be their recovery year. Maybe not. I mean, maybe that was their best shot. The difference with Philadelphia, the Niners replaced coordinators pretty seamlessly, in part because their head coach calls plays. That's not the situation with Philadelphia. And I think it really is going to challenge Philly. This year it is. Next year, the years after, what happens when Jalen Hurts, he's on his fourth coordinator in 4 years, kind of, because Sirianni was his coordinator for a few games his second year. And then he gets a year and change, maybe almost 2 years, a year and 3/4 with his next coordinator. Now he's got another coordinator. He started with Doug Peterson. They're just in a weird spot. And they'll be a Super Bowl contender for several years to come, not just because of him, but because of their organization. But nobody is quite in this window in the way the Niners have, in that they've been beaten down, they've failed, they've succeeded, they've been the favorite, they've been the underdog, they've had numerous, situations where it felt like it's not them anymore. They're on their third quarterback of the window, kinda, right? Because Trey, for a minute there, for 8 months, off season 6 months, but off season months, was taken over. So I just think they've seen more shit than everybody who has not yet won the Super Bowl in this whole group. And I think it's part of the reason they look the way they look. And I think what Stephen A said about the way they showed up in Philly, fully believing, it's not bluster, fully believing that game was theirs. They were going to win the game. They had no doubt in their mind that they were going to win that game. I've said last year, before Brock Purdy got hurt, just the way the first series played out with Philly on offense, I was not convinced the Niners were going to win that game, just sitting there in that moment. But, as we know from the game we just watched, as we know from a lot of Niner games, what you do on your first and second drive, even though the Niners' first drive scoring numbers are very good, although this last week they ran 6 plays and 2 drives and Brock was 0 for 4. What a game is for its first and second drive is not the game. You can look at the Eagles-Niner game. You can look at look at every game. Not every game, but most games. Look at the Oregon-Washington game from Friday night, which I watch very closely. So there are plenty of examples of teams that have been in their championship window and then extended the window and then remade themselves in that window and done it again and again and again. But man, right now in the league, there's not a team. I'm thinking as I'm talking, I'm just imagining. I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but I've watched all the Star Wars movies. The Hobbit, J.R. I never watched those movies. I did read the books when I was a kid, but the Niners are on a journey like a Hollywood journey, an Odyssey, if you will. If you look at the arc of what let me see if I can pull it up here, of what an Odyssey is. It's a formula. I mean, it's a book, right? But it's also a formula for how movies are made and books are written and stories are told. And the epic formula. Anyway, I can't find the graph right now, but it's like 8 parts, and there's a challenge. The main character doesn't want to partake in the challenge. The main character then embarks on the challenge. The main character then, encounters challenges along the challenge. I'm sure I'm skipping. I know I'm skipping a few, but then in the end, they come back home. And the Niners have been on that Odyssey for a long time. The hero's journey. Thank you, James. Yeah, that's what it's called. The hero's journey. Niners hero's journey has been longer than some hero's journeys. And let me see if I can pull this up here. I'm only using I'm typing with one hand right now because of this broken microphone. But much like the hero of all the journeys, I will persevere. Hero's journey steps. Here we go. Oh yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. All right, you want to see this because this is them. Here we go. Let's make it bigger. Thank you for your patience. All right, there you go. So how does this thing begin? We've got, where do we start? At the top. The call of the adventure, refusal of the call. You never refuse the call, although you could argue hiring Jim Tomsula was a refusal of the call. Meeting the mentor, organizationally, I guess maybe that was Harbaugh, but for this team, it's Shanahan, obviously. And kind of maybe, definitely not maybe John Lynch. Then number 5, crossing the first threshold. That was finding Jimmy Garoppolo. We're ad-libbing this. I hadn't thought of this until we were middle. Number 6, test allies, enemies. I mean, that's, fill in the blank. There's several things have happened along the Seahawks. The rat poison, right? To borrow from Nick Saban, everybody telling you you're going to win. That's number 7. Number 7, approach to the inmost cave. This is the hero's journey. That's the 2019 on the verge of the Super Bowl. They almost got it done. They went as far as you could possibly go. And then they went through the ordeal. The reward for that. What was the reward for that? I don't know. The experience, the friends we met along the way. And then number 10, the road back. The road back was, bouncing back. The road back was 21. Resurrection was clearly, the resurrection was absolutely Garoppolo. You thought he was dead. You thought he was gone. It was all over. And you drafted Trey Lance. And then return with the elixir is Brock Purdy. Niners returned with the Brock Purdy elixir. And now here we are back at square one. So I guess the return of the elixir would be the Super Bowl. So maybe they're not at 12 yet in this wheel. Resurrection. Well, maybe the resurrection number 11 is like, that's Jimmy and then Trey and then Brock. Brock is the resurrection. I know he's religious. And then return with the elixir would be trying to win the Super Bowl. So there you go. That was not the intent of this video, but I'm glad we got it there because you know, when they say a story, when they say a team, when they say it's like, you know, this is a Hollywood story, or you know, even Hollywood couldn't make a story like this. Nobody's journey wheel is as long in terms of teams that have not won the Super Bowl. Maybe the Ravens would argue, but you know, I think the Niners, from a franchise standpoint, when you step it back further to the Harbaugh era, but that's not what Stephen A. was talking about. What Stephen A. was talking about is this group of players, and I think he's right. I think he's very right. I think they're very focused. I listening to him, I thought, God, what are they going to look like if they win the Super Bowl the next year? But I don't know. I think they got enough guys that put the pedal to the metal. But that would be a good problem for them to have. Anyway, all right, there we go. The hero's journey. It all started with Shannon Sharpe, Stephen A., and that's why you wake up early and watch First Take. Okay, that's that for that. Thanks for hanging. Real quick, have more coming up later today. If you're here right now, like the video, appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel, appreciate that. Thanks for powering through audio issues on the front end. Appreciate that. I don't know if anybody else will watch this video after it's done being live because of those audio issues on the front. So leave a comment maybe if you're here right now that says, actually, I'll put a link in there. Say skip ahead. Audio gets better. But if you guys want to do that too, we'd appreciate that. Sometimes they got good takes. I don't know what to tell you. It was what was on. I'm just looking right now. It's Stephen A. They're just making faces that I'm entertained just by the faces. All right, got to roll. Thanks for hanging, everybody. And talk to you soon. Later.